Hello and welcome to the lecture for chapters 1 and 2. In this lecture, I'll talk a little bit big picture wise about what entrepreneurs do and what motivates them and that sort of thing. And then I'll talk in a bit more detail about the business plan, starting with feasibility analysis and then kind of just walking through the different sections of the plan that we'll be completing in this class. So entrepreneurs, separate from small business people, are people that look for opportunities. They take risk to take advantage of those opportunities. So they look to create change. That's the big difference between an entrepreneur and a small business person. So entrepreneurs could be in small business or they could be in very big businesses, but they basically look for needs that are unmet and then work to meet those needs. So most successful entrepreneurial enterprises incorporate at least one of the following characteristics. They offer customers something new, some gadget, device, app, service, whatever the case is, that didn't exist before they thought of it. Or they take something that exists and they make it better. They might make it better in terms of features and benefits for the customer. They may make it better in terms of convenience, those sorts of things. They might identify an underserved or new market, so a group of customers that wants a particular product or service that isn't available to them logistically. They may come up with a new delivery or distribution method. So I think a great example of that is HelloFresh, that delivers prepared ingredients and recipes to you so you can cook dinner at home without having to go to the grocery store. That's something new that didn't exist before that. Or it's somebody that looks for increased integration. So ways to, again, this really gets at the heart of convenience, making it easier for customers to get multiple things they need from one source versus multiple sources. So what kind of motivations exist for people to take that risk and become entrepreneurs? Well, think of it as 4 C's. So one example or one type of motivation might be control. That's where you want to have the ability to see an opportunity, figure out how to capitalize on that opportunity, how to fulfill that need, and then do it without having to get permission and ask people and convince people and all of that. So the ability to control your enterprise. That was a huge thing for me. Another is challenge. Those are people that really kind of get excited about the difficulty of starting something up. So getting the ball rolling is way more interesting to them than keeping the ball rolling. So that's an example of what might motivate some people to do it. Creativity is another. So they want an opportunity to make their mark on the world, to leave a legacy, to contribute to society in some way, make the world a better place. Creativity enters into that. And then last is cash. The people I know that have become very successful financially are generally people that have started businesses and sold them. And so getting rich is a motivation. There's a reason that it's last in this list, because I think if that's the motivation that drives you, you're probably not going to be as successful as if it's one of the other 3. And financial success is an outcome rather than the goal. So a free enterprise system is based on a voluntary exchange. So customers have a need, they have cash, you have a means of fulfilling that need, and you want their cash. And it's a willing exchange between those 2 parties to exchange goods for cash. So companies that are successful are companies that are really good at understanding the needs of the customers, sometimes knowing the needs before the customers even know them, and then meeting those needs in a reasonable way. So a good business opportunity is an idea that you have, and I'll talk more about where ideas come from in chapter 3. That has these 4 characteristics. 1, it's attractive to customers, and it has to be attractive enough to overcome inertia, to overcome the relationships that customers already have with other providers. So if you're going to open a new kind of coffee shop, people already have places they get coffee. They're loyal to those businesses. So how are you going to do something that's attractive enough to get them away from what they're currently doing over to your company? Next, it has to work in the business environment. So it has to be something that's feasible, that can actually be done from a legal standpoint, from a just technical standpoint, all of that. Next, it has to be executed in a defined window of opportunity. So if you have an idea for a new type of restaurant, it can't take 10 years to get it off the ground, because what will change between now and then. So it has to happen fairly soon. And then last but not least, it has to be defended against competition. If you have a great idea for a new type of food that you would serve in a food truck, you might be really successful until the other food trucks see what you're doing and they copy it. And then you don't have that advantage any longer. So it's important that it's something that you can defend and not have other people just copy you and take your business away. So some of the benefits of entrepreneurship, one is control over time. It always kind of frustrates me to hear when people say, well, you're going to own your own business. That means you can set your own hours. Well, yes and no. It means that you are on call essentially 24/7. If something goes wrong in your business, or a customer needs you, or the bank is requiring something, or whatever the case is, you need to do it, whether it's Friday night or Sunday morning or Monday afternoon. So your schedule isn't dictated by a boss any longer. So there's some advantages to that. You can take a Wednesday afternoon off and go do something you want to do, go to your kid's game or whatever the case is, but know that you're going to really, there's still demands on your time that have to be met, and that'll happen other times. One is a sense of personal fulfillment. So creating something, creating jobs, offering solutions to customers can be very, from a psychology standpoint, can be very fulfilling. Having independence and autonomy is a key thing for people. Not having their future controlled by others is important. Creating something that didn't exist before and having pride of ownership is a definite benefit. Financial reward and control over compensation, that gets to the fact that your compensation is really the profits of the company. So whether you choose to take that in the form of salary or a distribution of profits or whatever the case is, you can decide that, and again, decide if you want to take less pay and grow the value of your company, or if you want to take as much pay as you can and not worry about the long-term value. That's another approach. Control over working conditions was also really key to me. I had worked places where people weren't kind to each other, where it wasn't an environment that you really wanted to spend time in. And I thought that that's such a terrible thing. And I never wanted to own a company that was like that for anybody. So starting my own company, I was able to say, what kind of place would I want to work? And how should I kind of create rules, both formal rules and informal rules about how we are together. It can be whatever you want it to be. That's kind of a cool thing. Another is self-esteem. It definitely feels good to be the boss and to run the show, and that's a powerful thing. And then last but not least, contribution to society. So making the world a better place, making people's lives better, that's also a good thing. So some of the downsides of entrepreneurship, one is business failure. Most businesses, most entrepreneurial startups don't do well. So 20% fail in the first year, 50% fail by year 5. So there's a risk, a financial risk there. In many cases, you'll be putting your life savings into this business and risking that you could lose that. Another downside is obstacles. So your competitors will create obstacles, regulations end up being obstacles. So oftentimes it feels like everybody is against you in some ways, because you are always kind of climbing over these things that are put in your path. Loneliness and isolation, that's one reason that people do choose to have partners. So it can be tough when you're the boss, because if you're really worried about the future, you can't necessarily spill your guts to all of your employees, or they'll all run out the door and find other jobs. So you end up being in a position where you don't have a lot of people that you can really share that burden with. Financial insecurity, There's always, like I mentioned, that threat of bankruptcy hanging over you at all times. Then the last two, long hours, hard work, strain on personal relationships. You'll find that if you're running your own business, that there's always more that can be done. You never finish your work and leave at the end of the day. There's always more that you could do to improve your business. And that kind of, some people let that get out of hand and they work 7 days a week and they get burned out and resent their business and all of that. But it does limit the ability to have hobbies and have outside interests and outside relationships and those kinds of things. So everybody has to go into it with their eyes open. The one thing that's really important is that if you do go into business with other people, that you have kind of talked through the motivation issues and the upsides and downsides, and everybody is on the same page about it. Disputes happen when people aren't on the same page. So one method that some people use for looking at business opportunities is what's called a SWOT analysis. That stands for strengths and weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So it's an objective way to get an overview of a business situation. So strengths and weaknesses, that's an internal focus. So looking inwardly at the company, what things are you really good at? And like what kind of experience do your employees have and all of that kind of stuff. And then what sort of weaknesses do you have? Maybe lack of capital, maybe you don't have people that have the experience that's needed, those kinds of things. But it's all internal to the organization. And then opportunities and threats look at the external circumstances. So what external opportunities exist? What external threats are there? External threats could be big things like climate change and those sorts of things. It could be things like potential changes in laws or competitors entering the market. If as I was starting a business and there was some threat that maybe Amazon would enter my market, I would be really nervous about that. And then when you look at it that way, you can start to say, well, how can I take my strengths and use those strengths to go after opportunities? How can I mitigate the weaknesses my company has? How can I make those better? And how can I head off threats? How can I see if this could happen down the road? What can I do to be in a better position to weather that storm when it comes? So a feasibility analysis is a way of looking at an opportunity before you actually get started to see, is this kind of viable? So one is understanding the market. So getting an idea about who is the potential customer that I want to sell to? How would I describe them? And how many of those people are there in this area? And how many might I sell to? And how much I might charge them? And those kinds of questions to see, is this a business that's going to bring in $500 a month or $50,000 a month? That sort of thing. I'd look at the industry health and trends. So look at industry reports, trade association reports to say, is the industry growing or shrinking, and what kind of issues are they challenged with? I'd look at whether or not you have a clear, defendable strategic position. So is it going to be clear to customers what you're about, and can you kind of maintain that? Capable management, are you going to have people on board that know the things they need to know in order to do it, in order to pull off your plan? Are you able to attract, motivate, and retain employees? So what kind of an employer are you going to be? What kind of people are available in your area? Those kinds of questions. Financial control. So what kind of cushion have you built in? Have you been conservative with your forecast? And then adaptability. So if things do change in the market, how can you change your business to adapt to that? Or if change happens, does that mean you're done? One way to go about a feasibility analysis is to make a general statement that's the basis of your business, and then create a list of questions that challenge that. And then for each question, you could do research. So one thing I recommend is going to www.trl.org. That's the Timberland Regional Library. You have to have a library card to do it, which are free. And there's a databases there that you can use to get answers to those questions, like how many people live in this county that have certain attributes. The database that I found that works best there is Reference USA. Please see me if you need any more information on that. So the next section about a business plan. So a business plan, the benefit of creating a business plan really is in the process of doing it as opposed to the end document. So a business plan is going to tell the story about what your business is and what it will be. It's going to include all of the costs that need to be incurred. It's going to include a marketing plan, which is who am I going to sell to and what is my message going to be to those people and how am I going to deliver that message. It'll have a description of how you're going to get financing to start the business, and then an estimate of projected earnings, kind of what is going to happen, what's my best prediction about what's going to happen over the next couple of years in this business. So contents for the business plan, there is a cover page. So people that look at business plans, whether they're investors or banks, will look at a bunch of them. So they need something on the front that says Joe Blow's business or whatever the case is. There's a table of contents. So generally readers of business plans don't read them like a book from front to back. They skip around in them. So you need it to make it easy for people to find the sections they're looking for. And it starts with an executive summary. The executive summary is actually comes first, but it's the last thing you prepare. So it's a boiled down synopsis of your overall plan. Maybe it's a page and a half or 2 pages at the most. Next comes a company description. That's an overview of what legal form the company is going to take, where it's going to be located, that sort of thing. What kind of basic business are you in? That's followed by the mission, the vision, and the culture. So a mission statement, and we'll talk about each of these in greater detail. A mission statement says this is why we're going to exist. This is what we're about. A vision statement is where you think you're going to be down the road. What will this look like in 5 or 10 years? And then culture is what is going to be, how is it going to be to work at your company? What's going to be the culture of the organization? That's followed by your analysis and research. So analysis both of the industry, so what are the factors facing the industry and how will we work with that? And second will be competitive analysis. So what are my competitors and how do I stack up against the main 3 or 4 competitors? That's followed by marketing strategy and marketing plan, which I'll define who my target customer is. This is who I really want to sell to, what my message is going to be to that customer and how I'll communicate it, and then how I'll actually make sales and service my customers. That's followed by management and operations. So who is my management team? Who are they or who will they be? It could be these are the kinds of people I'm looking for. What are their background, skills, education, so forth. There'll be a risk analysis. So what are the major potential risks to this business and what are my contingent plans if those happen? What is about my physical location and facilities? Where will I be located? And then production and quality assurance. How am I actually going to create my products or deliver my services and make sure they're what customers, make sure I'm complying with what I've promised my customers. Lastly, it'll end with the financial analysis and projections. So a projection of my income statement. So how much profit am I going to earn in the future or where will my losses be? And then cash flow projections. So where is money going to come from? Where is it going to go to? And then what are all the assumptions that that is based on? So the plan, in order to be compelling, you should have a very short 5 minutes or less elevator speech. That is the adage that you get in an elevator and Jeff Bezos gets in the elevator with you and you've got the length of the elevator ride to tell him about your business. That's what that means. You need to have basic facts, figures, and sources. So your plan needs to be believable. If you say that there are tons of people in Olympia that are going to want your product, that doesn't mean anything. If you say there are 100,000 people in Olympia that meet this following criteria to be my customer, that means something more, and citing where you got that information. The time frame for most plans is 3 to 5 years. Out further than that, it's anybody's guess, and shorter than that, it's kind of too brief to be useful. It's important to use business language that's appropriate to the reader, so don't use a lot of acronyms without spelling them out unless people know what those are. people will judge your plan based on your ability to communicate in English. Whether that's fair or not, that's important. It's good to make it very readable, so include bullet points. Don't have whole pages of dense text. Use visuals, photos, illustrations, charts and graphs, things like that to break it up and make it easier to read. And then lastly, what are some things that you should address? So you should always anticipate what questions are going to be and address them in advance. So is it a solid business idea or is it flaky? Is there a sufficient market for the product, or is there a handful of people that would want it? Are the financial projections healthy but realistic? Okay, so not kind of pie in the sky. Is the key management team capable of executing the plan? Again, if you need to instill confidence in the reader that they could do that. And then any reader is going to want to know, how am I going to get paid back? So if they're lending you money, how are they going to get repaid? If they're investing money, how do they recoup that investment at some point, hopefully with a gain. So that's the end of these two chapters. I look forward to talking to you again in the lecture for chapter 3. Thank you.